Hello, everybody. Thank you for being with me today. I have a very special presentation prepared, and I have a very special guest as well. Tom Carey, friend and Roswell researcher Tom Carey, is with me today. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through this slide presentation. We're going to keep it very visual. This is a graphic intensive presentation show. We've got pictures, we've got slides, we've got newspaper clippings. We're going to give you the sources of where we got the information. Tom, thank you so much for joining me today. And can you really just give us a brief overview about your background and how you got interested in the Roswell incident?
Well, first of all, thank you very much, Michael, for inviting me tonight.
Yeah.
I was born in Philadelphia, so that makes me a city slicker.
Okay.
Grew up in Philly, attended, got a degree from Temple University, bachelor's degree, a master's degree in anthropology from Cal State, Sacramento, and attended the Toronto University's program in anthropology for PhD in Toronto. I got interested, or I became interested in the Roswell case in 1980 when I read a book called The Roswell Incident by William Moore and Charles Berlitz. That book blew me away, Mike, and
Yeah.
for me, all other UFO cases became secondary.
Okay.
And I took a chance in 1991, that's 11 years later, of doing actual research with the team of Kevin Randall and Don Schmidt.
Okay.
And that was in 1991, and it's now 2025. So that makes me 34 or 35 years active research on the case. And
Okay.
Don Schmidt and I have written 11 books on the subject as
Oh,
we sit here.
wow. Wow. That is very serious. So as we go through this presentation, Tom, we're going to present hopefully some really nice world exclusive surprises. And I want to get your unadulterated impression on some of these drawings. And if there's corrections that we need to make, we'll make note of it and we'll make the corrections. That's the goal of this presentation here. So I'm going to go ahead and start. And most of the information today comes from this book, Ultimate Guide to the Roswell UFO Crash by Noe Torres, a tour of Roswell's UFO landmarks with GPS coordinates and OR codes. So what I thought was interesting about reading this book is it actually gives you basically a pictorial of each of the hot cases of all the locations associated with the Roswell incident, and it gives you the GPS coordinates. So you can actually go there and visit these sites, and it makes it so much more real when you actually read about these sites and then go visit them. So we're going to try to make this come alive through the use of drawings, sketches, and illustrations here. I want to give credit to my very good friend and artist, Rudy Gardea. So here's a picture up here. He's joining us on the chat. So he's with us now. So hi, Rudy. Good to be with you. Thank you for being along with this crusade. I really appreciate your friendship and all your work. So let's continue on here. So Roswell road trip. We're going to just go right down the list here. We're going to do this in numeric order by date. And then please feel free to chime in, Tom, with any comments or questions. And we will go ahead and start right here. So the first witnesses of the Roswell UFO were Mr. and Mrs. Dan Wilmot, who saw a bright glowing object in the sky near their home north of town on July 3rd, 1947. Tom, can you comment on what they saw?
Yes, they were the first witnesses to this event. They saw a disc-shaped object fly over Roswell heading northwest on the night of actually July 3rd, July 2nd.
July
And
2nd. Okay.
yes, 1947. That's when they saw it. And that was the night of it didn't crash. It blew up in the air. We think it was struck by lightning, and the craft blew up late in the evening, perhaps between 11 p.m. and midnight of July the 2nd, 1947.
Okay, very good, very good. So I did a little bit of digging here, and I pulled up this newspaper clipping. Batesville Guard, June 19th, 1997. That's the reference for anyone who wants to follow along here. We're not going to read this whole thing, but I just want to zero in on this point right here. It says Mr. and Mrs. Dan Wilmot were apparently the only people in Roswell who had seen what they thought was a flying disc. The Daily Record reported from where he stood, Wilmot said that the object looked to be about 5 feet in height, and making allowance for how far it was from town, he figured that it must have been 15 to 20 feet in diameter. Wilmot, who is one of the most respected and reliable citizens in town, kept the story to himself, hoping that someone else would come out and tell about having seen one, but finally today decided that he would go ahead and tell about seeing it. The announcement that the Roswell Army Air Force was in possession of one came only a few minutes after he had decided to release the details of what he had seen. So here's another clipping about exactly what he saw. Now, there were two other witnesses, Tom, that I think you're aware of. We had two Roman Catholic nuns at St. Mary's Hospital. Mother Superior Mary Bernadette and Sister Capistrano saw a flaming object falling toward Earth north of their position. What's interesting, though, is they recorded this in their logbook, and this is talked about on page 73 in the book. So, Tom, do we have any idea where this logbook is and how we can get a copy of the entry?
Where, excuse me, where what is?
Where the logbook is. Where is this logbook that they recorded this in?
I believe that Randall and Schmidt saw the logbook.
Really? Okay.
That's just a guess. I mean, this happened so many years ago.
Right.
They got the information from the logbook. Where the logbook is now, Michael, I'm not Catholic, so I wouldn't have an idea. St. Mary's Hospital no longer exists,
Mm-hmm.
so the documents and memorabilia from the hospital, where that ultimately wound up, I have no idea. But
Okay.
we did get the story. This was before I actually joined the Randall Schmidt team.
Okay, got it, got it. It won't be easy to track it down, but the account basically mentions they are on the third floor section, looking out the window toward the north, and this would have been a minimum 35 miles north of their position. So I thought, you know what, Rudy, let's see if we can get a drawing of both nuns looking outside this third story window as this thing is coming down, and let's see if we can get a drawing. And here's what we came up with, you know, just to give an idea of what this may have looked like from the perspective of both nuns looking outside the window, because they're one of the very first original witnesses. That's what makes it historic here. So let's continue.
There were two other witnesses, Michael,
Okay.
to the craft. One was a co-owner of a radio station KFL, KGFL in Roswell, last name Wolf. He
Okay.
saw it from his home in Roswell. He saw it heading northwest, and there was another fellow that lived north of the crash site named William Woody, and he actually saw it come down.
Okay.
So
Okay.
they're all pointing to the same location. So besides the Wilmots, there were two others that we know of that actually saw the disc in the air either heading northwest or falling to the earth.
All right, so that's interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that. So if we take those four witnesses and then we hook up the two nuns, now we've got 6 witnesses that saw it before it actually hit the ground, correct?
Yes.
Wow, that's great. Okay, that adds a lot of credibility to the case here. Let's continue on. So this is Roswell debris field, morning of July 3rd, 1947. So you've got Mac Brazel and 7-year-old Timothy D. Proctor that came across a debris field that was about 3/4 of a mile long. Approximately how long was this gouge? How wide was the gouge, Tom?
The estimate of it was 500 feet, a gouge in the terrain.
Okay.
Heading in a northwest to southeastern direction, and
Okay.
that's what has been reported to us.
So, okay, so what would be the length and width dimensions of the gouge then?
Well, 500 feet long,
Okay,
uh, and the gouge runs from several feet wide to a smaller width because
interesting.
the ship, it didn't just stay flat on the ground. It was still trying to gain altitudes. But it
Okay,
was reported to us, I believe, by we call him Bill Brazel Jr. Was the son of the rancher William Mac Brazel, but he wasn't technically a junior. But we call him Bill Brazel Jr. just to differentiate him from his father.
okay, okay. And so this would be the morning of July 3rd, 1947, correct, Tom?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
because the incident occurred late in the evening of July 2nd.
Okay, got it, got it. So we've got Mac Brazel, we've got Timothy D. Proctor, and they came across three types of debris. So debris number one was this thin aluminum tinfoil looking debris that was crumpled up, could not be cut, could not be burned, could not be dented with a 16-pound sledgehammer. Debris number two was the so-called holy grail memory metal that you could crumple up in your hand, and then when you released it, it spread out like liquid mercury and then settled back down to a table.
Yes.
Debris number three was various types of I-beams that had hieroglyphic type writing on one side, and then we also had what looked like fiber optics as well. Tom, was there anything else mentioned?
Oh, well, there are a number of things, all of them of which I can't remember at the moment, but uh, I think Jesse Marcel Jr. mentioned something like Bakelite,
Okay, okay.
which is like a, yeah. Well, you're too young to remember 78 RPM records, but
I
these,
remember it. I
yeah,
remember
but
it.
something like that, Bakelite, and then the most interesting pieces of wreckage are what you just mentioned, the very stiff, thin metal that you couldn't dent with a sledgehammer, the memory metal, and the I beams, which had strange writing on them. So
Okay.
those are the three main, plus the fiber optic debris.
Great. Okay. Let's continue on here. So now we've got the crash site. This would be July 7th, 1947. So whatever quote unquote biologics or bodies or biological material was out there. So Tom, this is correct then. It was rotting and decomposing out in the desert for the morning of the 3rd through the night. So we have the night of the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, and into the 7th. The bodies were decomposing. Correct, Tom?
Correct.
Correct. Okay. Now, I want to make sure I've got this correctly here. So we've got the ambulance truck, we've got one survivor, we've got two dead ET corpses. Now, where the craft came down, the ultimate crash site, that was within 200 yards of a windmill and a water tank. Is that correct?
Approximately, yes. That was our when we went to find the we call it the impact site,
The
uh,
impact site.
where
Okay.
the remains of the ship that had exploded in the air. We think it
Right.
was either the inner cabin or some sort of escape capsule of some sort. Came to rest about 30 to 32 miles northwest of Roswell, where the debris field site where the ship exploded in the air was 75 miles, 78 miles due northwest of Roswell. So you
Right.
have those two different sites. And at this impact site just north of town, there were three entities. Two were dead and one was still alive.
Correct, correct. Okay, good. So just want to confirm then that the windmill and the water tower were not at the debris field, but they were at the impact site, just as we show here, basically, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
good. So this is July 7th, 1947. Let's continue on here. And what's missing in this illustration, so this is an egg-shaped craft, 13 feet across, the size of a Volkswagen with a small rise dome on top with a hull breach. And then we've got the two ET corpses. We've got the survivor. We've got the 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy truck, and we've got military personnel. So let's continue on here. The first civilian on the crash scene was fireman Dan Dwyer left. Is this correct, Tom?
Yes.
Yes.
If we exclude ranchers. The ranchers, probably a rancher or two or several, and their children. They were probably the first, but the first official person from Roswell or Roswell Army Airfield to get there was Dan Dwyer, and his he was a crew chief for the Roswell Fire Department, and his sidekick Lee Reeves. You can see them there on the leaning against the back of the car. Dan Dwyer is on the left wearing the hat, and
Uh-huh.
Lee Reeves is right beside him. He's hatless, but they're both resting upon the trunk of the car.
Okay. So did he ever talk about what he
We
saw?
we never could find Lee
Never.
Reeves.
Really?
We tried very energetically to find Lee Reeves. We believe we found his son, but he wouldn't talk. So
Okay.
Lee Reeves himself, we never could find.
Wow. Okay. So let's see if we can continue on here. Now I know I called you prior to just to make sure and confirm how he got there. So he pulled up to the crash site in something that looked like this. It was a fire
Ab-
tanker, right?
Absolutely, it's called a tanker. It's
Okay.
basically a pickup truck with a water tank in the back, and that's how they
Okay.
got out there. Yes.
All right. So let's go back to the power of Rudy and let's see if Rudy can put together an illustration that kind of encapsulate the crash site. So we know it came down on a rocky outgrowth arroyo, and then we'll have Dan Dwyer pulling up in the tanker, looking at the crash scene. And so, Tom, this is what we came up with here. It's just kind of gives you an idea. So we have Dan outside the front of the pickup truck. We've got the crash site here, the debris on the craft, and then we've got the rocky outgrowth. So it was a rocky outgrowth where it came to rest, correct, Tom?
It was a rocky outcrop, but not like that.
Not
Uh,
like this.
no, it
Huh.
was flat land. It was flat land,
More flat land. Okay.
and
Okay.
no hilly. Let's call it a berm or something. Nothing like that
Hmm.
that you have there.
Okay. Bottom line, though, is that there was an arroyo associated with where the craft came down to rest, though, right? It was somewhat
Well,
of a rocky outgrowth, but maybe not to this level here.
not to that level. It was very flat land, Michael, but there
Huh.
was rocky outcrops, but they were lying flat. There was no hilly situation like you have depicted there.
Okay. Okay. So how many times have you been to the actual impact site, Tom?
I'd say twice.
Twice. Okay. Can you pick up something? Is there a vibe? Is there an aura when you get there? Can you feel it so many years
Oh,
later?
let me tell you, there's an there's an aura when I cross into the town of Roswell.
Yes, it's true.
Especially when I go to the base, the old base. It's really you can feel just the aura. Certainly at the crash site, Mike, you can't stop feeling that way. It's history, and it's really strange history. And for me, it was every time I go to Roswell and visit the sites,
Okay.
and especially on the base, the aura is just very strong, very strong.
Okay. Okay. Now, as far as today in 2025, what access does the public have to both the debris field and the crash site?
Well, they're both. Well, the impact site is private property. It's the old Martin Ranch. I don't know who owns it now, but it's up Highway 285 and just to the west of Highway 285. But I don't know who owns the property now. We
Okay.
fortunately were able to get permission to search the property for the windmill and the water tank in the back, which you correctly have there.
Okay.
The debris field site uh, is on BLM, Bureau of Land Management, the Bureau of Land Management land. But unfortunately for the public, it's surrounded by private property. And we always had permission from the owners to visit the debris field site in the past, but we
Mhm.
understand now that the owners who own the land around the debris field site, they don't want anybody on their land. So what I would suggest is anybody planning to go to either one of those sites to check out the latest, whether any permission is have been granted or what the situation is. Go to the UFO Museum, the UFO International Museum and Research Center in Roswell, and check there, because they will have the latest information.
Okay, so gauging the windmill and the water tower, Tom, can you place it within plus or minus 100 feet where it went down? Do we know exactly where the thing came down?
Well, we knew where the windmill and the water tower
Okay.
were, and we were told it was between on a rocky outcrop about 100 yards. It's somewhere between 100 and 200 yards in a certain direction from those two structures, and
Aha.
there was the rocky outcrop. I can send you a picture, Michael.
Yeah.
I can send you a picture of it that I took of it.
Okay. That would be great. So
That would clear up and show you. It would show you what the lay of the land is, and I will email you a picture of it.
okay, wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so let's continue on here. So now at this point, we're at the retrieval operation. We've got the military involved now. Now, is it true, Tom, that the 509th Bomb Group, Roswell Army Airfield, they did not have a crane at the base? So they had to hire an independent contractor from downtown Roswell to take a crane all the way up to the crash site. Is that true?
That's my understanding. Yes.
Okay. All right. So now you've got civilians involved in this retrieval operation. So here was the very preliminary rough sketch by Rudy, just like the loading process, getting this thing nailed down, getting the monuments in place. I wonder what that operation would have been like. So they probably had a lanyard, Tom, and they had a net, and then they moved it onto the 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy. Does that sound correct?
Well, I wouldn't know exactly, Michael, because
Uh-huh.
but it's the ship itself was like you said, about the size of a Volkswagen Beetle.
Mhm.
So how big does the crane have to be? And they would load it on the back of a lowboy tractor trailer is where it was loaded on the back of, and they
Right.
drove it straight down Main Street in Roswell, right through the center of town to the base.
I love
And
it.
we have a number of witnesses to that. So,
Great.
but it went
Okay.
on the back of a lowboy tractor trailer.
Great. Okay, so let's go to the full color rendering of the loading process here.
Very good. That's very nice. I like that.
Okay, so we want to keep it visual here. So we want to give credit to Joel Payne for doing this one. So we've got the
Excellent. Excellent.
loading situation. We're getting ready to pull out. We're going to put a tarp on the top of the craft. We'll secure it with ropes and chains, Tom, and then we'll move it down Main Street, Roswell. So this is the overall, let's say, 1,000-foot altitude top view looking down of the whole scene. I'll rip through this quickly and you can chime in here. So we've got multiple things going on. So if you look at the upper left of this map, you've got the touchdown site.
That's
That is
it.
the location where Lincoln La Paz and Louis Rickett discovered a couple of things that aren't talked about very much. Number one, they discovered fused glass, which is indicative of high heat. And they also found a seamless black box that we don't have any idea if they were even open today. We don't even know. So, Tom, you want to comment on those?
Yes. Uh, in the fall of 1947, Dr. Lincoln La Paz, a meteor expert, was driven around the state of New Mexico and parts of Arizona trying to determine the speed and the trajectory of the craft. And in
Okay.
that process, they discovered a location on the desert floor where the earth, sandy earth, had turned to glass,
Aha.
ostensibly from great heat. So we've never been able to find that. We've never been able to find
Oh,
that location, although we've looked hard for it. We've never been able to find it, and but it was described to us by Louis Bill Rickett, who was master sergeant on the base at the time. He was the driver for Lincoln La Paz. So you have
Oh,
it approximately in the correct area, but were never able to find it.
okay. So Tom, the whole concept of high heat, fused green glass, sand being fused in the glass, wouldn't that discount the weather balloon right off the bat? Because now you're talking about very high heat.
I thought we've already discounted the weather
Yes,
balloon.
yes. I mean, it's just another thing. Now let's get back to the black box. What was it? What was inside it? Was it ever opened?
The black box was mentioned, I believe, by Jesse Marcel
Okay.
amongst the wreckage. Uh, no one knows what happened to it.
Huh.
Whether it was ever opened, it was only mentioned by Marcel as something that they found, and it's never been identified as to what its disposition was, where it went. And
Wow.
uh, uh, one of the people that went with Marcel out to the crash site, Sheridan
Sheridan
Cabot.
Cabot? Yeah.
Yes, his son Joe was a lawyer. One day at Thanksgiving one year, he asked his father over Thanksgiving turkey, "Dad, whatever happened to that little black box that you guys found?" Well, in werewolf movies where the fella turns into a werewolf, that's what Sheridan Cabot turned into when he son asked that question. His eyes got real squinty. He pounded the table with his hand. He got up and left the table. He was so mad. He never did answer the question.
Wow.
And to this day, we don't know whatever happened to that
Wow.
black
I-
box.
Isn't that another piece of telling information, Tom? Why would Sheridan Cabot go ballistic if there's nothing to it and it's just a weather balloon, right?
Yep, that's true. That's true.
Okay.
Same with the gouge on the desert floor or at the debris field site. There are no weather balloons going to create a gouge when it falls
Correct.
from the sky.
Absolutely. All right. So 5 miles south of the touchdown site that you see on this map here, we've got the debris field. So that's 65 miles northwest of downtown Roswell. That's where Mac Brazel and Timothy D. Proctor found the three types of debris. Now, the trajectory of the craft was from the northwest to the southeast, and
Yes,
about 2.5 miles southeast of the debris field, we have the second body site known as the D. Proctor site, where two bodies were ejected from the craft. Correct, Tom?
correct. It's about 2.5 miles east southeast. It's more eastward than it is southeastern. So two
Okay.
and a half miles east southeast of the uh, debris field site is what we call the D. Proctor body site. And it's a long story why we call it the D. Proctor site. I'm not going to go into it, but
Sure.
it's because it was D. Proctor who pointed it out to his mother, Loretta Proctor, who took us there. So,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
so it's
Okay.
2.5 miles east, southeast. Two of the uh, alien beings in the craft, when it exploded, disintegrated, two of the occupants were thrown out of the craft and fell to earth on a low bluff 2.5 miles east southeast of the Retrieval site. They met their fate on a low bluff at the D. Proctor body site. So all together, there were 5 beings in the craft. 4 of them met their fate, and one of them was still alive when they were discovered.
Okay. So that's what we have kind of at the center of the map. That's the crash site. That's where the egg-shaped escape pod came to rest. And then there were two bodies discovered there. They were both deceased, and then there was a survivor.
Yes, that's at the impact site.
That's at the
Yes.
impact site, correct. Okay, so let's continue on here. Now we have William Woody and his father. They had a sighting that you talked about earlier. Later on, they drove their pickup truck on Highway 285 heading northbound and distinctly remember seeing armed guards posted along the highway. So this would be to prevent people from going west off Highway 285 and then also to the east as well. This is page 139 in the book. So I thought let's see if we can get a drawing from Rudy and incorporate his talents into something that it would look like as they're driving down northbound on Highway 285, and then you see these MPs blocking the westward entry into the desert where the crash site was. So let's see if we can go to that. And Tom, this is what we came up with here.
Works for me.
Okay. You know, I
Oh, that
mean,
looks good. Very good. Yes.
good, good. So, you know, what would this be like encountering these MPs and over a weather balloon, Tom? Why would they be there over a weather balloon, right?
I thought we were done with the weather balloon.
I think we're done with the weather balloon. Yes, I think we've discounted that. But this just gives everybody an idea of, from their viewing perspective, looking outside the windshield of the pickup truck, what
Yes.
it would have been like to encounter these MPs just cordoning off the area. Now, do we have any idea how many were posted, Tom?
Oh no, all I know is that they were posted up to a town called Ramon, uh,
Ooh, okay,
up Highway 285, also on the Pine Lodge Road. And how many there were, I couldn't say, but there were enough to keep people from going to the west. They were mostly
right,
concerned about people getting off and driving to one of the crash sites. So they were posted along mostly the western edge of the Highway 285, and also on
okay,
the Pine Lodge Road. I think
okay.
the Pine Lodge Road, I believe they just stopped them from going at all on the Pine Lodge Road. So,
Really quickly, Tom, between when the craft came down and let's just say the morning of the 3rd, when Mac Brazel came across the debris. So the morning of the 3rd, how long was it until it just started burning through the town of Roswell, where word of mouth spread like wildfire? How long was that time period?
20 minutes.
20 minutes? Really?
No, no. Once somebody got back to Roswell, because we talked to a woman, she had a bookstore in Roswell at the time, and
Okay.
I interviewed her, and she said once somebody came back with the information that what was going on up north, she said the whole town became aware of it in 20 minutes.
Whoa.
Now, that's a short time. Well, anyway, it was a short period of time, Michael.
Right.
But she said
Okay.
20 to 30 minutes.
So let's just say, would this have been like the 5th or the 6th, somewhere in there, or earlier?
Well, no, it would have been, well, certainly not on the 6th, but
Right.
the site just north of town with the Volkswagen-sized escape pod or
Right.
inner cabin with the two dead ones and the one alive. That occurred on the 7th. That was on a Monday on the 7th,
Right.
and I believe it would have been on that day because there were several people that got into town on that day, some with pieces of wreckage. Some of the people came back with pieces of wreckage, and that would have gotten around. And they kept talking about little people. They called them little people.
Huh.
They
Huh.
also found little people, and that would have been on the 7th of July, which was a Monday.
Okay. So, in your professional assessment, Tom, do you believe that there are still people today living
Yes,
right now as we speak that have debris?
absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. Like up in an attic somewhere or
Well,
folded away
I don't
or,
I don't like beating around the bush, so
yeah.
uh, we actually know of one or two, but they won't come clean, and we're not going to strangle them to
Right.
to come clean. But uh, they're pieces were, that because a lot of people at the time, especially the ranchers and their children, when there was a crash, they would pick up. They called them souvenirs. They would pick up
Right.
souvenirs from the crash, and so we know that happened. And they could not have gotten every piece. I mean, there's just no way they could have gotten every piece. Although we haven't found any in two archaeological digs, but certainly people who have taken souvenirs from the site. Uh, Certainly, one or two of them at least has a piece,
Okay.
And it's just a question of someone coming forward with it at some time that we don't expect. But
Mhm.
we, like I
Mhm.
said, we do know of one or two that have been said by others they have a piece, and we've approached them and, oh no, not me, not me. But someday somebody will come forward. It's got to be a piece of the memory metal, Michael, because
Right.
the the behavior of that memory metal, we still don't have anything like that. So you don't have to send it away to some laboratory in some faraway city. Oh, so and so, they're analyzing it. We'll get back to you when they're done. And somehow we never hear the results, you know.
Mhm.
So it's got to be something we can demonstrate on television to people. Okay, people, this is a piece of the memory metal that we retrieve from the crash site. Watch what it does. And you hold it in your hand, you open up your hand, and it'll just sort of float down to the floor. And so, and then you can't cut it, burn it, twist it, permanently crease it, or anything like that. So it has to be something like that that we can demonstrate on television in the moment, and not send it away to some lab that you never hear from again.
Okay. Okay. Well, so
Does that make
why
does
don't
that
we
make
put out a
sense?
go ahead, Tom. Go ahead.
No, I was saying, does that make sense to you? Or
That makes absolute sense to me. And so, since we're here and it's real time, why don't we put out a call right now for anyone that's watching this broadcast live or anyone who watches this archive later on? If you have a piece of original Roswell memory metal debris from the July 1947 crash north of Roswell or the debris site, please contact either me or Tom Carey. Your identity will be kept under wraps. You don't have to separate or part with all of it. We just perhaps a small piece. This is something that would be on the honor system. So if you have a piece of debris, please contact me or Tom, and let's get this ball rolling. I mean, it's 2025. We've got congressional hearings. We've got a task force being set up in Washington, D.C. It's part of the narrative now. This whole thing is coming out weekly. We're having new revelations. So I think it's time, Tom. Do you agree?
yes, yes.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, Michael, we've had several witnesses who were in grade school. You remember when you were like in first and second grade, you had something called show and tell day.
Sure,
We had
sure.
a number of students over the years saying, well, when I was 7 years old, my father gave me a piece of this strain and I took it in to show and tell. So we have a number of those stories, Michael,
Okay.
that there are pieces out there that some people, when they were in grade school, were shown in. We even had one that the teacher said the student brought in. He was a
Wow.
teacher, and the student brought in a piece of memory
This
metal,
is
and he didn't know
wow.
what to make out of it. So there are pieces out there. That's what I'm
There are
trying to say.
bottom line. Okay, good. Excellent. Excellent. All right, we'll continue here. So now we've got July 8th, 1947, approximately 4 p.m. This was the first pass on a full color, well, call it black and white, by John McNeil. So John gets credit for this, going down Main Street. So in a nutshell, Tom, do we have two Jeeps up front, 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy truck, and then another two Jeeps in back?
That's That picture is so good. I've had people ask me, "Where did you get that
Oh
photograph?"
yeah.
I said, "It's not a photograph. Somebody put that together." No,
Yeah, this is by John McNeil.
that is excellent. That is
Yep.
excellent.
I commissioned him to do this for me. It's been 15 years now. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because, as you know, Tom, we'll move on to the next one here. There were multiple people who saw this convoy go right down Roswell Main Street that you can even follow the road that they took even today. You can follow the whole route that they took. So there were multiple witnesses that saw the convoy. There were two paper boys that
At
saw the
least,
convoy as well, right?
yes, yes.
Anybody else of interest that saw the convoy, Tom?
Oh, there were at least two paper boys. I don't. There could have been more. Uh,
Okay.
there was also a fellow who was working on the roof of a
Oh,
house.
interesting you say that. Okay.
Yes, he's working on the roof of a house when he saw the convoy turn into the base, and he,
Uh-huh.
he's up on the roof, and he sees this convoy coming by, and he we interviewed him. So we have a couple paper boys on the street. One of whom, do you remember this was a franchise restaurant called Steak and Ale. It was founded by
Sure.
someone named Norm Brinker, and
Okay.
Norm Brinker was a paper boy in 1947 in Roswell.
Okay.
Uh, I wasn't able to interview him, but his name is in the phone book, and he was worked as a paper boy back in 1947. He
Wow.
married the tennis woman, tennis pro, Little Mo Connolly, and
Hmm.
so he's somewhat famous. He's dead now, but he was a paper boy for the Roswell Daily Record back in 1947.
Wow. So you knew the roofer and you knew his name and you interviewed him?
Norm Brinker.
The roofer, the roofer.
Oh, that is, I believe one of us interviewed. It was either me, Schmidt, or Randall. I can't recall. It could have been me. That
Okay.
was what 30 years ago, and
Okay.
one of us. Let's say one of us interviewed him. It could have been
Okay.
me. It could have been Don Schmidt. It could have been
Wow.
Kevin
Well,
Randall.
it's interesting you mentioned the roofer, Tom, because I went ahead and had Rudy do a drawing, and this is what we came up with here.
Looks good.
So we have our roofer. Now, what's interesting, this is page 62 in the book, so there's a reference for this. His perspective was very interesting because he had a 45-degree look down on the scene as the convoy's going by. And he said that he's not only did he see the egg-shaped craft, but he could see various types of debris that were somewhat exposed sticking out of the bottom of the tarp. So
Yes.
he had a very good perspective.
Yes, and he wasn't the only one that saw the debris and on the craft,
Okay.
Michael. And in fact, I did interview one of the airmen who was in the convoy. He was in the convoy.
Oh, okay.
Yes, he was Raymond Manow. I can't spell his last name, but I can pronounce it roughly. Manow. He was in one of the jeeps with a rifle,
Uh-huh.
following the low boy, and I did interview him myself.
Wow. Okay, great. Great. Okay, let's continue here. So now we've got the base hospital is where the preliminary autopsy took place. Do we have a date for this, Tom? For the
It,
base hospital autopsy?
my guess is since they brought it in, they discovered the impact site on the 7th.
Right.
So I figure it would have been on the 7th or the 8th because it was flown out. The bodies were flown out on the 9th. Well,
Okay.
one flight out was on the 8th, and the other flight out was on the 9th.
Okay.
So it's either on the 7th, 8th, or 9th. That's the closest I
Got
can.
it. Got it. Okay. Okay. So we know that the original autopsy took place inside the base hospital. However, as you know, Tom, since the bodies were rotting and they were decomposing for days before they ever got there,
Yes.
the permeated stench that was wafting through the hospital area was so much that doctors got sick, nurses got sick. Does this track with what you heard, Tom?
Yes. Yes. That the bodies had been out there certainly since the day. I mean, the thing exploded on the night of the 2nd, so they've been out there on the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th,
That's right.
and the 7th.
That's right.
So that's almost a week out in that hot sun in July in Roswell. So they were definitely decomposing, and so
Okay.
and I can't. Somebody said, "Oh, well, they smelled like pneumonia or something like that," but those are just comments that people made. So all I can say is that they were out there that long. The report was that they were decomposing, and the smell was very bad.
Okay. Okay. I know we've got in Witness to Roswell that you wrote with Don. I recall you mentioned that there were military personnel where their clothes were so permeated with the odor that their wives had to burn their clothes. They couldn't get it out.
Yes, we did get that story. Yes, they smelled so bad, worse than usual,
Okay.
and
Okay.
and they had to burn the clothing. Yes.
Wow. All right. So now we'll go back to the Hangar P-3 Building 84. This would be about 4:15 p.m. on July 8th, 1947. So we've got the 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy truck with the 13-foot long egg-shaped escape pod. We've got the troop transport 6x6 off to the left that has debris in it. We've got the ambulance truck. We have at least some of the bodies laid out on the floor. We've got the caskets that Glenn Dennis talked about. And then in the background to the left, we have the beginning process of building the wooden crate. So can you comment on this scene, Tom?
Yes, the first flight out was on July the 8th. That was
Okay.
the flight of it was a C-54. It was not a B-29. It was a C-54,
Right.
flown by Oliver Pappy Henderson, and he flew. I don't know how many bodies, perhaps I don't know, two or three to right field
Okay.
in Dayton, Ohio. That was on the 8th.
Okay.
On the 9th was the big crate that you were talking about in the background there. It was 4 feet wide, 5 feet high, and about 12 to 16 feet long. It carried about two bodies, maybe three, maybe two or three were in those, and maybe one was just in the Pappy Henderson. Anyway, the bodies that were flown out on 2 days, there were four of them. They kept the live one at Roswell for a while, and the July 9 flight had the big wooden crate that you're talking about in the background. The Pappy Henderson flight on the 8th just had the little child-sized caskets.
Okay.
So
Okay.
those are the
Now,
two flights.
in the book, it talks about how since the stench was so bad in the base hospital that they moved the bodies over to Hangar P-3 Building 84. And then this is, we'll do a real quick newspaper clipping here. The Daily Advertiser, February 9th, 1994. Quote, "We know that everything that was recovered was brought to Hangar 84 at Roswell Air Base." Schmidt said, "We know that people who saw this material have been threatened, have been bribed, and to this day are still scared to talk about just what they saw." Let's continue on here. Now, I want to take everyone into this hangar because once they couldn't get over the smell in the base hospital, they brought the bodies over to Hangar P-3 Building 84, and they did another preliminary autopsy here because the smell was so bad there.
No,
No, that didn't happen?
no.
It
The
didn't happen.
preliminary autopsy was done at the base hospital.
Okay.
It was aborted because of the stench. The bodies were then shipped to the hangar to fly them out, not to continue an autopsy.
Okay, well, that's a good correction. At least we can go inside this hangar, and we'll go a little bit more here. This is a photo I took, and it's been 4 years now. You can see there's a couple of building sections off to the left and the right. It's a maintenance reclamation area now. This is the hangar floor section, and I believe I can get plus or minus 3 feet where they laid the bodies down. Now, the reason why I bring this up, Tom, is because in the book, it talks about the gray room, which is in this hangar, and it states that there was another autopsy going on inside this room. So you disagree with that, Tom? No?
No second autopsy.
No
They
second autopsy.
no, they were
Okay.
they were taken back to the hangar to ship them out,
Okay.
not to do an autopsy. I'd
So
like to know who would told you that because
yeah, I've
it's
got the
not
page
true.
here. So here is the gray room. I've got the photo credit here.
Yeah,
And then
I have some photos of the gray room myself.
okay, so this is page 115 in the book. They talk about there's reports that an autopsy went on here because the stench was so bad in the base hospital. But you don't concur with this.
No.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's the whole point of this. We want to make this as historically accurate as possible. But I'm just getting this from page 115 in the book. They mentioned this as being something that took place.
It's not our book, right?
It's not your book. No,
Right.
it's Noe Torres' book that I mentioned in the beginning. So it's good that we're clarifying all this. So it also mentioned this place right here, the base incinerator. So you've got Roswell Air Center now, which used to be Walker Air Force Base, which used to be Roswell Army Airfield. On the lower left, you have the star, which was where the incinerator was. I'm going to go to the next slide, and this shows you more of a detailed map. So, Tom, in the book, it also talked about how they erected a large Army tent way off to the side of the whole base where they put the bodies in before they moved them over to atomic bomb pit number 1. Do you concur with that?
Our information was that it wasn't a tent, just a cyclone. They put up a cyclone fence,
Right.
and kept them inside the fencing in wooden crates.
Okay, but would this be far away from the, like
yes,
the
it's by the incinerator. Yes.
So okay, so at least we got the incinerator correct, right?
Yes, but the tent,
Okay.
I don't agree with.
Okay, so here, this is page 134. They talked about there was a tent that was erected. It was near the incinerator. And here they're carrying the bodies from the tent over to where the atomic bomb pit was with the crate. So this is, just to give an idea. And you did talk about the chain link fence. That was mentioned in the book as well.
That's the only thing I'm aware of is the chain link fence, not a tent. So
Not
that's
a
all I
tent.
can. If they have information about a tent, I'd like to hear it, but I
Okay.
am unaware of that.
Yeah, it's definitely page 134. They specifically mentioned that there was a tent there. Around the tent was a temporary chain link fence, and that was within the vicinity of right where the location of the incinerator was.
That's
So
true.
this
That
is
part is true. All of that is true, except I'm unaware of the tent.
okay. I'm glad you mentioned that. Let's continue. So now we've got July 8th, 1947. This would be the night where the bodies in the wooden crate were lowered into atomic bomb pit number 1. And in the book Witness to Roswell, it talks about how there were 2 concentric rings of blinds with armed MPs with carbide based and positioned both inside and out both rings. True, Tom?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Then we have straight flush taxis up onto the tarmac directly under atomic bomb pit number 1, and by a hydraulic lift, the crate containing the bodies is lifted up into the bomb bay and then shipped to 8th Air Force Headquarters, Fort Worth, Texas.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So, I'm just wondering, now that this straight flush no longer exists, they destroyed a very important part of our national history. What about, there's no 509th Bomb Group members left anymore, right, Tom? All the firsthand witnesses are gone.
As far as we know, yes. They were B-29s, and
Okay.
I don't think there's only very few left. I think you probably can count them on one hand. They're in museums now, and the 509th Bomb Group still exists.
Right.
But they fly the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber now.
Mm-hmm.
So
would it be safe to say that there are no longer any remaining first-hand military witnesses to the event?
I would say that, yes.
Okay, so that's something to consider. Let's continue on here. Now that takes us to Sappho Ward, later to become Sappho Henderson, who was the wife of Oliver Pappy Henderson. We'll go one more slide forward here. Here she is being interviewed, and she talked about how her husband told her that he flew out at least one body in a C-54.
Yes.
I've got the newspaper clipping here. This is the Baltimore Sun, April 20th, 1997. Sappho Henderson, widow of Captain Oliver W. Henderson, a senior pilot at Roswell, says her husband told her privately in 1982 that he had flown wreckage of a spacecraft and a C-54 to what is now Wright-Patterson Air Force Base outside Dayton, Ohio. He said he saw the bodies of extraterrestrials. Henderson, who told the same story to Dennis, died in 1986. So comment, Tom?
Yes, he had kept the secret, as all of them tried to do.
Right.
But they were in a checkout line of a supermarket where they, I guess it was the Star or the Enquirer or one of those tabloids, had the front page story was about Roswell. And he pointed out to his wife, see that paper there? That's all true, because I flew the wreckage and the body. I thought he said the bodies as well, some of the bodies,
Okay.
to Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio. But up until that point, he never told his wife or anybody outside of anybody other than his crewmates who already knew. So
Okay.
he had a friend named John Kromschroeder, who was a dentist, but he was a metallurgist. He had a hobby, and he also, Pappy Henderson also had a piece of the wreckage, because he showed it to Dr. Kromschroeder on one occasion, and because Kromschroeder was a metallurgist, and the metallurgist said, "Where'd you get this? I don't know what to make out of this." And so that was another witness. And so we asked Kromschroeder, "Whatever happened to that piece of wreckage?" And he says, "Well, my understanding was that Pappy Henderson sent it back to the Air Force." That's
Hmm.
what we know or
Okay.
believe.
Did you ever get a chance to speak to Sappho Henderson?
Gee, that's a I believe I did. My
Yeah.
memory on that is so foggy now. I believe I did, but I already knew her story by that time.
Right. Right.
And she, at that time when I talked to her, she was living in Hawaii, and I talked to
Yeah.
her very late in life. But like I said, I already knew what her story was, so I didn't.
Okay. So that really brings up the question, Tom. Why would a military Air Force pilot with absolutely impeccable credentials, why would he lie about this? It doesn't make any sense, right?
Especially to his wife.
Yes.
He wouldn't lie to her.
No, you know what? Tom, I really believe his testimony. The military pilots are some of the best firsthand witnesses to this.
Same with Jesse Jr. Same with
Yes.
Jesse Jr. He was a helicopter pilot as well as a doctor, and
Mhm.
one of the finest gentlemen I've ever met. And he is not making anything up. And
Right. Right. Okay, so let's continue here. So this is the type of C-54 Skymaster that Oliver Pappy Henderson flew out some of the debris and at least one, perhaps two bodies
yes,
directly to Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio. And so here we have Pappy Henderson overseeing the loading of his C-54. Now, do you think he saw the body being loaded into his craft? Since he's pilot in command, he needs to know what's going in his
no,
aircraft?
I believe he saw them in the hangar when they were uh, uh, boxing them up, because somebody mentioned that Pappy didn't like looking at dead things, and
Oh, really?
that when he saw them in the hangar, he started feeling not well, because he didn't like looking at dead things.
Wow.
So no, by the time he's in this picture you have here, they're already in the boxes.
Okay. Okay. Well, good to know. Here's my colorized version of Rudy's drawing just to
Very
give an
very
idea. But
nice, very
bottom
nice.
line is he was aware of and saw at least one body, correct?
At least one, yes,
At
in
least
the
one.
hangar, in the hangar.
Okay. Okay. Let's continue on here. Now that takes us over to this photo. So you've got Mac Brazel left, the original witness, his son Bill Brazel to the right. Now, after this event took place, uh, Bill Brazel shows up at Wade's Bar in Corona. This is page 157 in the book. And it states there that he showed some of the patrons of the bar pieces of debris that he picked up and put them in a cigar box. You concur with this, Tom?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Any thoughts on this, on what actually went
No, he
down here?
was. I think he had a relative at the bar. He was trying to get someone to go with them to the debris field. I guess I can't remember, but he show some pieces around, and of course, no one knew what they where did you get this? And someone I think someone mentioned that there would be a reward for. Uh, something about a flying saucer. Some newspaper put out a $3,000 reward for
Hmm.
verifiable evidence of a flying saucer. And I think that was pointed out to Bill. I call him Bill Jr. just to differentiate him from his father. But yes, he did go to the Wade's bar with a piece of the wreckage. Most
Okay.
likely the memory metal, but I don't know that for sure.
How long after the crash in July 1947 did Bill pick up the debris and go to Wade's bar? How long was that time period?
Well, of course, at the time of the crash, he was in Albuquerque
Okay.
with his. He had just been married. They were in Albuquerque, and he read about the crash in the paper. And when they published the name of his father, he said, "Uh-oh, I better get down there to help out Dad.
Okay.
See what he's into right now." So that's a few days later, and by that time, his father was either still in captivity or had already
Right.
been threatened. And
Okay.
so Bill, uh, no, wait a second. I'm trying to remember if it was Bill or Mac. That I think Mac went to the Wade's bar because Bill was in Albuquerque. So uh, Bill, he said, in the 2 years since the crash, he had been, every time, especially after a rainstorm, he would go out and check the fence and all that. He would pick up pieces of the wreckage. He
Mhm.
kept them all in a cigar box.
Right.
And at some point, a officer from the base came to his house with a compatriot, another NCO, I guess, and Bill said they were here for my box of scraps. He called them scraps,
Mhm. Mhm.
and he said they were not leaving without that box of scraps. We
Right.
thought that was in 1949
Okay.
that they did that. So as far as going to Wade's bar, I thought that was Mac Brazel
Yeah,
himself.
so Mac Brazel, this is according to page 157. Mac Brazel did go to Wade's bar, but he didn't show any debris. Now, later on, Bill Brazel went there as well, and he did show debris. So that's what's talked
Well,
about in the book
he
here.
he it's a question of when we do know that they in 1949 they did retrieve a cigar box full of scraps, as
Correct.
Bill called them.
Correct.
So it's very, very possible that he took some of them to Wade's bar to show around. Yes.
Yep. And this is a photograph of Wade's bar today, Corona Laundromat. So it'd be interesting to go in there and kind of see people doing their laundry, not knowing how historic that building really is. So let's go forward here. Detroit Free Press, July 6, 1997. Brazel's son Bill, now 72, living in Capitan, got mixed up in the intrigue while looking after the Foster place during his dad's stay in Roswell. He found out about 8 pieces of debris overlooked by the military and put them in a cigar box. One day, while he was in Wade's bar, he mentioned the stuff he had discovered. Next thing he knew, a couple of Army Air Force types showed up, asked for the pieces, and told him to keep quiet. Today, Bill Brazel is tired of the whole business and pretty bitter too. He said he had been heckled over the years and was angry about the way his father had been portrayed in some of the movies about the incident. So this clarifies that Bill was at Wade's bar and he did show people debris, and then later
Yeah.
that debris was confiscated. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So my thought
But
was,
my point was, I believe that it was confiscated 2 years after the event.
well,
that's neither here nor there, but that's my understanding, is that the
Okay. So I
in
thought,
1949 they showed up at his door.
so if we wanted to do an illustration based on this newspaper clip, and we want to have Bill Brazel inside the bar, on the other side of the bar, we'd have the bartender. We'd have one patron off to the left, one patron off to the right, and then we'll have Bill Brazel in the center, opening up the cigar box of the scraps and Roswell debris and showing it to the people. So, Tom, let's go to the drawing. And this is what we came up with here, Rudy's drawing.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's a nice drawing. I would not criticize it. I just don't know that he took a cigar box full of scraps to the Wade's bar.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, I
I
mean, it does mention that he showed people in the bar pieces of debris that he had discovered, scraps that he called them. So I
well,
think we're within range here.
oh yeah, I would not criticize it. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to do a blow up here just to give more of an idea. So maybe he got some I-beams, maybe he got some memory metal, some fiber optics, and some other aluminum-looking shredded debris. It's very possible. I'd love to know where that cigar box is now. And we always have these congressional hearings, and we have a new task force that's been opened up, and they're always talking about a lack of physical evidence. Well, here we have the cigar box where this evidence is there. Where is the box? Where did the Air Force take it? That it exists somewhere. So someone needs to run this to ground and track this down and bring this out and open congressional hearings.
It's at Bigelow Aerospace.
Oh, yeah. There you go. There you go. So anyway, Tom, any final thoughts before we wrap up for this evening?
Well, I do like your drawings. I will have to say that. I do have, like, I have an original picture of Wade's bar when it was still Wade's bar,
Okay. Okay.
and I think you've done a nice job here. And
Well, Rudy gets credit for the drawings, but we're all a family here. We're all trying to get to the bottom of this.
yeah,
We want to
there are a lot of different, a lot of voices. We've got hundreds of witnesses that we've talked to.
Okay.
I'm not surprised that some people have different takes on things. That's the way life is.
Right.
But I'm very impressed with your drawings, and hope I helped out a bit here tonight.
Absolutely. I wanted to get your comments on this. So, Tom, thank you so much for being with me. I appreciate it. This will go up, immediately. We'd like to get feedback. Again, if anyone has an actual piece of hardware memory metal from the crash site, July 1947, please contact me. Please contact Tom. Your name will be kept under wraps, and let's see if we can move this ball forward. Okay. Thanks, Tom.
My pleasure, Michael. Have a great day.
Sounds good. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next one.